Hi everyone, hello. Welcome to the AMT podcast, the first episode. Today, I'm Mahmoud al. We have
Awni.
Tareq Nasser.
and today we're gonna bring you an exciting and out of the box conversation.
So the topic for today is it's gonna surround the fact that the USA just or recently invested around $59 billion in aircraft, 29 new B-2 jets. What are you guys' first opinions, first impressions before we begin?
Look, in terms of the B-2 jet, I mean, it's one of the most powerful out there, isn't it? I mean, many people say that like the B-2 jet is like, of course, one of the most powerful, especially in like the aircraft industry. And I think that it really has some effect that the United States chooses to invest in it. And, you know, there might be a motive behind it. What do you guys think?
I'm gonna continue with Tariq's idea. Like, this is more than just a normal investment. This is a move on a chessboard.
Mm-hmm.
This is a way of telling everyone that the US is not slowing down from a defensive standpoint, and it's only getting stronger.
So I'm gonna give everyone some history al mawdua when it comes to the B-2 jets especially. So the cost per jet's around $750 million.
Holy.
29 of them, that's around 59 billion. That's an estimate. We're not actually, we wouldn't know.
So we're just talking about the US in general dropping billions of dollars
on new 29 B-2 jets.
Okay.
Before this, I don't think 5 existed.
I think it was 5 that existed, but something that really catches my attention and makes me question
the United States and the decisions that they're making.
Yeah, it makes me question the state of defense in the United States of America. Is that usually in history, America always had secret aircraft, always had secret technology. But now I question that. I question that they have secret aircraft because they wouldn't put that much money into an aircraft that's not their best aircraft, in my opinion.
So the B-52 was in the 1950s. It was created. I believe it was a stealth bomber like the B-2. And the B-2 was created in the 1990s. And now the B-21 in the 2020s. They invested, again, $59 billion. I'll play devil's advocate and I'll tell you my reasoning on why the US is going to be doing this. Where's China winning right now? Mass production. Mass production. It's taking over economies for alam. But this is a real statistic. 37% of military spending worldwide is done by the US alone. They spend more than the top 10 countries combined.
It's not just that. Like, the US also wants to maintain air superiority, especially in terms of like what the US is and where their position is globally. And I think that has a big effect on them wanting to, like you said, Awni, mass produce. I mean, let's be honest, the US wants to stay decades ahead of other countries in terms of air power. And like another like fact that the B-2 jet actually has is it can carry nuclear or conventional bombs, meaning it's both deterrent and it's a war-ready tool. Therefore, that it's gonna be a really powerful weapon if the US decides to go into war or in terms of any defense mechanisms that it may face.
When we think about the US, what are they prioritizing? Are they prioritizing domestic or foreign policy? I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to show the world, and it's kind of like a power move, we're still the top. Satna فوق يعني, Satna the number one aircraft. So again, I'm going to go back to statistic. The US spends around $1 trillion a year on military spending compared to China around 300 billion. And then tahto it even gets lower and lower. So this is a crazy statistic. The US spends more money on military spending and their defense budget than the top 10 combined. Do you know how ridiculous that is?
Yeah.
They use 3.5% of their GDP when they're not at war on defense budget. Which is like, what the hell is happening?
But we also have to like admit that the US is a threat to global security everywhere. I mean, let's be honest, like the US can easily like just choose to wage war on any other country and have a huge advantage over any other. So, I mean, having these like B-2 jets and in general better war security would further help them basically show the world where they stand globally in terms of war and in terms of the damage that they can conflict on other countries. I mean, let's be honest, with the President Donald Trump, his status is very important to him, especially the status of America. I mean, to him, he's not just a politician, he's a businessman. And businessman meaning that he makes a lot of intelligent business-minded decisions, especially when it comes to the benefit of the United States.
You don't think China, or you don't think if Russia and China together went and spent or tried to spend their military budget completely to try to deter what's happening in the US, do you think that they don't stand a chance?
I think the only way you can stop any country, like any of the global superpowers, is by a nuke. Like
a nuke?
Yeah, like that's why I don't.
But a nuke
think
wouldn't just wipe out the country; it would wipe out half the continent.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think any big war is gonna happen anytime soon.
You don't think a war is gonna happen soon when they spent $59 billion on B-2 jets?
I think this move by the US is just a form of denial by deterrence, or denial by punishment. I mean, basically, denial by punishment is it's one of NATO's main pillars. They used it a lot in the Eastern European region by like against Russia. So basically, NATO, they would have a bunch of aircraft based nearby.
Yep.
So the enemy would be too intimidated by the consequence of attacking that you would not attack. That's why they're denying the attackers. They're denying the enemy through the consequences, through the threat of retaliation. So that's what I think the US is doing. I don't think this is a move as in we are gonna attack someone. I think this is just, these are the consequences if you do attack us. I don't think the US is gonna do any move like that unless it's like a super small country. I think it's like if it's a country that no one cares about.
I mean, not really. When you look at the history, I mean, look at what Bush did, like in terms of Iraq. Like the Iraq war had a big effect on the stability of the Middle East, and like how basically the United States can just go into a country like this, like Iraq, and be able to kill millions of civilians without having any problems or without fearing human rights.
Yeah, that's why I said global. Like a war between global superpowers. Iraq was not a global superpower, and never will be. So,
look,
like,
now,
a country that's not a global superpower.
You can argue both ways.
A country that's not a global superpower, it's not going to be a problem for anyone.
I have a counter.
Unless if it's like backed by NATO.
So you're saying in terms of what's going on right now in the Middle East, in terms of countries like, for example, Nigeria and countries like Palestine, for example, you think as they are not global superpowers, then they matter less?
What he was saying was foreign intervention and foreign policy when it comes to these countries isn't as important when it comes to first world nations. If Russia didn't have nukes, I genuinely think America would have given them the Iraq treatment, which is they would have invaded them وكان completely gone. But the problem, because they don't have a really strong military, we have to face that. China has a strong military. Russia doesn't have as strong of a military. If Russia went to war without nukes against, let's say, India, Pakistan, if they both teamed up, they would have a hard time. The USA and China would have a field day فيهم. If it meant invading their lands, whatever, it would be so easy. Russia they have a skill issue. They're not even doing well with Ukraine. They're not doing that well with Ukraine.
I agree.
But the only thing that's deterring them from being ganged up on by Europe and NATO is the fact that they have nuclear weapons. So the fact that we have B-21 bombers being produced for nuclear stealth weapons, by the way. Nukes. That displays a way, the US is basically saying, we're going to prioritize our aircraft and nuclear weapons. We're going to, زي ما حكيت, deter anyone from trying to invade us or getting in the way of any of our foreign policy, especially Israel. And we're not going to respond with attacks with the military. We're not going to go to war. We're simply going to nuke.
Yeah, I mean, nukes are the main pillar of denial by deterrence. The only country that does not have credibility in their threats of nukes is Russia. Because and North Korea, they're the only countries that, like, if they say, "Oh, I'm gonna nuke you if you do this," the people are not worried. So, but like any other country, if America says, "Oh, if you do this, we're gonna nuke you," then that's gonna be a nuke, and that's denial by punishment. That's deterrence by punishment. I mean. So
But I have a question for you guys. Do you guys think this is the beginning of like a new Cold War? Not the beginning, or something leading up to it, especially with the Israel stuff and the proxy wars happening in the Middle East. Do you think this huge investment in aircraft, is it the start of something like the USSR and the US in the 60s?
Look, now the stability of the Middle East has also been very, I mean, not abrupt in a way, but it has been very undecided in the past, actually since the 1930s. Since, of course, a lot of the Arab nations were colonies to France and the UK, and we adopted a lot of their language and their traditions and their history. But at the same time, I don't think that what's happening now is as big as how it was before, as I believe the UN plays a crucial role in how countries operate nowadays. And of course, like for example, if you look at past people, they just started crusades. They started bringing up people and they started like making global movements. But now the UN has violations to these things. Basically, it can stop them from doing it. So that's what I'm trying to say. From my individual perspective, I believe that what's happening now is truly horrific, but it has no correlation to how the Middle East was operating in the 1940s and how the stability of the region now differs to how it was before.
now I understand your point, but is the UN really credible anymore?
I wouldn't say in terms of is it credible or is it not. I would say are the policies basically in place or not. And from my individual perspective, I believe that the policies are in place. And if anyone decides to start a global movement,
policies?
I mean, listen. If America is on the front line against the UN, then the UN does not have power. Then the UN does not have a say. Then the UN does not have a choice or a decision or anything.
I disagree. I would say organizations like the UN definitely have a higher authority than countries like the United States. However, the United States can be able to basically try and implement or kind of make a change in what the UN thinks, as they are a global superpower and we need to have that considered. But I still further believe truly that these organizations have a bigger say than countries like the United States.
So guys, I'm gonna try to switch I'm gonna try to stay on topic, but also switch the perspective. I saw this post, like I heard about this news on the Instagram. I think it's on Pubity or whatever. You know that Instagram page? Yeah. Or like Inside Politics, whatever. And obviously they're American. Obviously they're American based. And just like 3 years ago, we had a movie glorifying aircraft like Top Gun Maverick. Mahmoud's a very big aircraft fan. I am too. He wants to go into aerodynamics specifically because aerospace engineering, because we love airplanes. We love the engineering behind it. We're fascinated with it. But the problem is, do you think that this is propaganda? Don't you think, I'm not saying in the news is propaganda, but the fact that why can the USA out of any country vote in people who put in legislation to invest this much amount of money into nuclear aircraft? Do you think it's because of propaganda that's making the people more and more radicalized to think that we need to spend more on military, more on defense, more to keep these evil nations away from us? Or do you think it's just, do you think they have the right to do so? Do you think they're justified?
Awni, I don't think it's really from a perspective of is it propaganda or is it not. I truly think that currently in our day and age, there's a big nationalistic movement going on. A lot of people are becoming more basically stuck and going back to traditions and going back to conservative views, especially when it comes to their countries and their security. As in terms of the United States, yes. I mean, let's be honest, the Republican Party currently leading is a conservative party. Okay. And they're very conservative to the fact that, for example, many of the views, like for example, someone very famous who has recently died, Charlie Kirk. He was a very right-wing activist Republican, and he used to go to campuses and he used to basically talk about how we need to have conservative Christian values in the United States and just conservative values in general. How nationalism is important and what shapes a country is its people. because it's very important. And I believe that the Democratic and the Republican Party in the United States have a lot to offer. However, they are very diverse, as the Republican Party is very conservative and they really go back to traditions. But on the other hand, the Democratic Party are more progressive and are more out there. And because what I'm saying is the United States is investing in itself more than investing in other countries, because there's a nationalistic movement going on where they need their country to be the biggest and they wanna remain on top. So I believe that caring for a country and nationalism go hand in hand, and I believe that since that movement is going up, especially as Trump is a businessman, he would prioritize his global sanctity and security and status and how his country operates, rather than not caring and having a more progressive view on it.
طب سؤال, wouldn't you say that I agree. I think the Republican Party, when it was voted in, especially in the United States, what happened was the Republican Party has historically been more keen to invest in the military, to invest in the defense budget. But even the Democratic Party it's not compared to other countries, they still invest so much of their GDP, so much of their money on defense, which is ridiculous. Both parties are very pro-military compared to at least the other countries. And the thing that we don't realize is the Democratic Party, even in the United States, can be considered center-right compared to other countries left, because of their economic policies. Yes, they have some stuff that's very leftist of them. Like, for example, they wanna legalize abortion on the state. They don't wanna they don't wanna make it a state thing. They wanna make it completely legal throughout all 50 states. They want stuff like gay marriage, etc. And sure, maybe the Republican Party says it wants it now, but it was the Democrats who legislated that the gay marriage stuff. It's leftist socially, but when it comes to economics, they're very capitalist. They're very pro military, very pro defense. We can't forget Obama, who is a very revered Democrat, bombed the Middle East much more than Donald Trump. Much more than Donald Trump. He bombed Syria. He bombed, I believe, Iraq. Probably because we were in a war, but still. So it speaks about really how American culture, especially after World War II, is all about mass production of nuclear weapons, mass production of military
capital interest for everything,
right. Especially after even the Cold War. I think this is the beginning of another Cold War against China, but I don't think it's going to be fought with weapons. I think it's going to be fought with how much of the economy they control, countries, currency, etc.
I'm gonna expand on that little subtopic that you just mentioned about China and economic control. So recently, people discovered that they could buy Nike shoes directly from China and ship them directly from China, and that really hurt Nike sales. That hurt shoe sales a lot. Now, what this shows us that like China can really hurt the American economy, since all of the big tech companies and the big clothing companies, they all produce their components and their shoes and their clothing and their accessories in factories across China and across Eastern Asia in general.
Even in, I think, 2017, Huawei was banned in the USA. I'm not sure. We can fact check that. But even car brands, like there's this new car brand, BYD, the Xiaomi phones, all of it. I wouldn't say it's surpassed American technology, but it's gotten very close. It's much cheaper when it comes to deliver. Like, I got the Temu yesterday. I got a Temu order yesterday. I'm not using American brands anymore except for my iPhone, and I think it's gotten out of, because it's so overpriced. Yeah. Especially when this is a big problem with, especially when Trump came in, he was like, our companies are leaving the country, going outside, producing their products outside of the country, then importing them inside. They're boosting the economies of other countries, even though they're American. So we have to incentivize them يضلوا في البلد.
Look, what you're saying is correct. And actually, recently I saw a video of a man who visited China, and he entered a store, and this guy had a problem with walking. He was handicapped, but the technology in China is becoming so advanced لدرجة إنه واحد بيقدرش يعني يفهمها. Yeah, and he can't be able to comprehend it in a way that like the man walked into the store with the wheelchair, and he asked the man. He told the man, I want to walk. This guy had something. He told him, attach this to your leg. It was about maybe 2 kg. He attached it to his leg, on both of his leg, one here, and one on his back. This technology is so advanced. He had an iPad that's being able to help him move. He's telling the robot where he wants to move and how he wants to move. Then, when he asked the guy how much does it cost, he told them it's 1,200 United States dollars, which is almost nothing to be able to walk.
Yeah, I agree with you, and this is actually a big problem. There's $59 billion in the air, but there's $0 on the ground. Where's the free tuition? Where's the free college? Where's the free for their people? I understand the 300 million. I understand they're very right leaning when it comes to their economics, and they're capitalists. They don't want to give free welfare, or they don't want to give very good welfare. But $59 billion and $0 on the ground.
What is the point in putting so much money into living a safe life when there is so much hurt and pain that's being caused by the lack of tax dollars being invested back into the people, back into the healthcare, back into the tuition?
Do you want more taxes for the American people, or do you think the taxes should be allocated to different things?
No, allocated differently. Like, taxes are already high. They're already high. Life will change so drastically to the worse if they make the taxes higher.
I wanted to ask you guys, what do you guys think about the tax system in the world? I mean, let's be honest, like,
in the world,
taxing the rich is actually really like it's in major countries, most countries, where at the same time they take a percentage of your net income and they tax you accordingly.
I wouldn't say most countries, most European countries. For example, this is something in Norway that happened. What happened in Norway? They raised the tax, I think, to 55% on billionaires' income tax. So what happened was, when these billionaires heard this, they thought, Norway thought, like the government thought, we'll get the billionaires to start paying more towards welfare. What happened was the billionaires just left the country. So you know what happened? I believe like a year or two later, they made the law, or they legislated the law when it comes to taxes, and you have to pay a certain amount of money to leave the country. So they're essentially trapping their citizens inside, the rich ones, to stay inside the country. Now, I don't personally think that taxing the rich is bad, but obviously this doesn't, like, that law doesn't work. And hello, when it comes to the USA, when it comes to the USA and taxes, do you, like, the $59 billion spent on B2s, obviously not useless, but what do you think the people, their biggest concern is China, or do you think their biggest concern is how well they're doing in their own country?
Their biggest concern right now is how they're going to afford to pay their kids, how they're going to afford to pay their tuition, how they're going to afford to pay their insane medical bills. Now, I mean, if you're a single mom of 5 kids and your kid is sick or something, how are you gonna afford to pay that? I don't know what's going through the government's head when they pay this much on defense.
That brings me to another point, Mahmoud. Do you think that in terms of the healthcare system, you should be able to pay for maybe a private healthcare system, or for a better quality healthcare system if you can afford it? Or do you think everyone in the country, no matter how much you make, should have the same access to healthcare?
Now, listen, I think it should be like how it is in Jordan right now. Now we have more affordable options, but there are also expensive options. Now it's hard to give everyone the expensive option, and it's unfair if we remove the expensive option.
Yeah.
Maybe if I have a lot of money, I'd rather go to a more expensive hospital. Well, it doesn't matter whether it's better or not. Maybe, like, as a parent, I would be more comfortable with going to the expensive option, even if it's not better.
Do you think that the existence of better hospitals would mean that it would therefore be, there exists worse hospitals? Because if you have better hospitals, in turn, you're going to have worse hospitals. So if you spend more on certain hospitals, even if they're private, certain hospitals are going to be much worse. So what if the government, for example, intervened and gave everyone the same healthcare, but it's good? I don't necessarily agree with this. Canada does it and it's not that good. People wait years for their surgery. The UK, same thing. However, the USA has a much يعني better position when it comes. They have much more money, much better technology, medical care, better doctors. Do you think that it would be feasible for them? And how do you think this ties into? Are people fed up with the Republican Party spending this much money on the military, especially with the 59 billion?
I mean, the topic is around America, but this subtopic is on a global scale. Now, I'm going to answer you. I like if it's feasible, it works in theory to have the same level of healthcare accessible to everyone. It works in theory, but it does not work in application. Like you said, Canada did it, the UK did it, and it's inefficient. People don't get their surgeries. People don't get the healthcare they need. So I think there should be public hospitals that are affordable to everyone and willing to help everyone. But at the end of the day, there is always going to be more expensive private hospitals for people who are not willing to wait, who are looking for the best possible healthcare. Like, no matter for the government to make hospitals as good as private hospitals, they need to put a lot of money in. They need to invest in a large amount of money. And I don't think that's feasible. Yeah, taxes should definitely go to healthcare and stuff. But the amount of taxes it's going to need to make public hospitals as good as private hospitals is a lot. And I don't think people are ready to pay that much, even if they know it's going to something that good. Like even if they know it's going to healthcare.
When it comes to the military spending this much money, we have to also give them the benefit of the doubt. What if this is them trying to keep the economy running like after World War II? So I'll give you something called military Keynesianism. So it comes from John Maynard Keynes. He's a British economist during the Great Depression. And he said that when private demand is too low, the government should step in and spend money to keep the economy alive. Currently, the US economy isn't doing necessarily bad, but I mean, I personally have relatives in the USA, and I know this is anecdotal, but they tell me, even before Trump, things were completely unaffordable. Eggs are completely unaffordable.
Even in Canada, even Toronto, things are going out of hand.
Completely unaffordable. So after World War II, for example, the US had spent lots of money on industrializing and weapons, tanks, whatever. And they realized that it actually ended the Great Depression because the amount of money, the amount of jobs created by the manufacturing of these tanks, of these weapons, of these etc. So I'll skip how it works, but the US leaning on this is because I believe they're trying to keep the economy running, especially with the fact that China's, let's be honest, outperforming them when it comes to the economy, when it comes, I believe, even AI, when it comes to their automobile industry, technology. I think this is a way for the USA to not only deter China, to keep them scared of invasion, but to also keep them scared of economic invasion. So when it comes to the future of war now, since we've seen $59 billion being invested into the B-2 jets, what do you guys think is the future of war? We've seen Ukraine, quite frankly, turn into a drone festival.
I don't think a massive global superpower war is going to occur directly, but maybe a smaller war like the Ukraine war, like the genocide, that can snowball into a big war, a big world war even. For example, the Ukraine war. If Putin gets more pissed off than he is right now and decides one day, I'm done with Ukraine, I'm gonna invade other Eastern European countries that are not a part of NATO. Maybe one day he wakes up and he's like, I want more than just Ukraine. These countries are obviously more, the countries are more accessible to him, pawns on a chessboard to him, and he's the queen. These are really easy to invade. So what if he just wakes up one day and he's like, I want to invade them?
Like, I think probably he learned from تجربته مع Ukraine to not be able to go into other countries because he's not really doing that well when it comes to Ukraine.
I think he could be doing better if it wasn't for international law.
Yeah.
بس أحكي لك إشي. Currently 34%, I believe 34% of Ukraine's GDP is being spent on their war efforts, and only 7% of Russia's. Russia's obviously winning, but they're also trying to maintain national stability and not lose it fighting a war against a much weaker country. Shifting towards the future of war. When it comes to AI and drones, I don't want to sound like I'm glorifying war, but at least back then it used to be fought valiantly with honor. It used to be fought man to man.
Are you talking in terms of like the 10th century? Or are you talking in terms of
in terms of literally 100, 200 years ago? It was horrible. War was horrible. I agree. But right now, when you like, imagine training your entire life to go to war, and instead of dying by someone else's gun, by someone else's sword, whatever, you're dying to a $5 Temu drone. Seriously, like think about how pathetic of a life you lived to die to a Temu drone, and the guy driving it isn't even trained in it. You know, that's what's happening in Ukraine currently. It's ridiculous.
So millions of people are dying to Temu drones.
Millions of people are dying to drones. Not millions, actually.
Thousands.
No, not even thousands. Soldiers are dying to Temu drones.
I mean, yeah, you do have a point, but at the end of the day, war is war. People will do anything they can to win against their opponent, and that even includes betraying their honor.
Let me add another point to it. When we look at history in terms of, for example, the Ottoman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, they were all connected under one truth, one faith. If you look at the Ottoman Empire, for example, العقد التاريخي تحت الدين الإسلامي. If you look at, for example, the Byzantine Empire, they were united under the Eastern Orthodox Church or under Eastern Christianity. Those countries were united under one thing. But if you look at, for example, the Christian and Muslim countries now, not all of them are really united under one faith, one truth, and there are actually problems between them.
I agree. Sorry, I'll let you finish your point, but I mean, you look at the USA, one of their biggest weaknesses is national division. True. There's no unity at all.
Exactly.
And when they publicize it, when they publicize stuff like the Charlie Kirk shooting, no one here really liked Charlie Kirk. Like I thought he was an Israeli shiller, but you know, when your own people go kill someone
for your opinion, it's a problem.
China's looking over there, like the top officials, the people, they're looking and they're laughing. Like how stupid of a country do you have to be? How unprofessional. Exactly. I mean, you look at the president, he posted like an AI video of like a jet flying over Chicago and like spraying feces like all over Chicago. How is the US become so unprofessional in what 12 years?
Listen, the division of, in general, like in the division of culture, it's not just that, it's because as well there's a mass immigration going on. Now, I have no problem with immigration at all. I believe all people should be accepted.
What does immigration have to do with?
Because I believe that adding to the immigration of different cultures and different religions cause a bigger division in a country. And I believe that when for example you have like an Indian person and a Jordanian person and a European person and stuff, they were all brought up in different households with different faiths, with different background info. So they're not going to be able to line up on the same values, and they're not going to be able to fight together to fend for our country, especially when it comes to freedom, as freedom has many different it means different to different people. That's what I'm trying to say. It has different meaning and different athar when it comes to nas.
When it comes to freedom, do you think $59 billion right now being spent on aircraft, when it comes to this, is this a sign of freedom? Is this a sign of American power and protecting democracy, or is it more so ensuring that America stays in power no matter what?
Look, as you said, Awni, earlier, no matter Democrat, Republican, all of them, their main priority is national security. And I think that's a problem that all Americans, and that's something that all Americans should be able to take in consideration, as national security is a priority to all types of people. But at the same time, we have to also further understand that as national security should be prioritized, being able to basically have a lot of the money allocated to different things that will benefit the country is so much better. For example, America could put, for example, 30 billion into weaponry and aircraft security and security, and the other 20 billion could be invested into education, transportation, public healthcare, other things. But at the same time, as the US is prioritizing national security, then a whole majority of the funds should be allocated to national security.
So what do you think about the US military budget?
In my opinion, I don't think the US military has a budget. I think it's given a blank check and they just fill it out with how much money they need or even want. It's too much.
I feel like they throw around numbers in like the White House, like, oh, we should put يعني, what's your favorite number? 59. It's like, yeah, جد يعني. There's no reason. I've never seen such a, like, why are you investing this much money in your defense and not any money in your welfare? I understand being capitalist, but hate, this is hate towards your own people.
Yeah, there's a degree of.
I understand. Yeah, exactly. I feel like, yeah, okay, defend your people, but you've defended them a lot. You spend $1 trillion a year on military spending. I think you can take billions from the billions that you give to Israel and put them towards education, to the homeless.
Don't forget the money they give to Ukraine.
Yeah, Ukraine. I mean, honestly, Anna, I say this as a person who, this affects the Middle East, and the reason people should care about this, like, people think, we should be only talking about problems when it comes to the Middle East because we live in the Middle East, because these are problems that are affecting all of us.
That's true.
When it comes to
military, when it comes to national security,
when it comes to military intervention, especially, exactly. The amount of money they're investing in Israel to secure their foreign policy, it destabilizes the entire region. We've seen it happen in Libya. We've seen it happen in Iraq. We've seen it happen in Syria. I mean, Syria, even under Bashar, I don't like to defend him, but right now the regime is pro-Israel, openly pro-Israel. It's ridiculous. They've destabilized the entire region to support an ethno-state.
This is making me think about when, was it Trump? Yeah. I think it was Trump when he said Israel is the 51st state. Which is crazy. I mean, how can you as their president put a random country over your own people? And I think we all know why. We have to stay silent. We have to stay silent. We can't say anymore. Yeah. But I think we all know why he's putting Israel over his own people. How can you spend that much money? How much does he spend annually?
On Israel? He's more than hundreds of billions.
It's insane. And even Joe Biden before him did the same thing. The APAC money is crazy.
APAC is crazy.
The thing with Israel specifically, the more money the US invests into Israel, the more the people start to detest Israel. Yeah. When Gen Z, the US's Gen Z get in power, get into politics, there's not, the military spending is going to drastically decrease because it's linked to Israel. Because it's linked, like, their disdain for spending their tax dollars on the military is primarily because they don't want to enter foreign wars. And when Gen Z gets in power, the national defense spending is going to go down because of how much they hate Israel. And whether or not that's a good thing for the country, it doesn't matter to them because they're fed up and the entire world is fed up. It destabilizes the entire region. I mean, even Jordan, ya Rab, we're not destabilized soon, but
Alhamdulillah, thank all glory to God, we're the most stable country in the Middle East, and I believe that especially in the Levant.
So guys, to end the topic, this was a sort of a short episode, but it covers a short topic. Do you think there's a right amount of money the US or countries in general should invest into their military spending, especially if they're let's say they feel like they're being ganged up on?
Now, I don't think it's like a fixed amount for countries. I think it should be a ratio. Now, I don't know how much this ratio should be. I don't know how it should look like, but there should be a balance between your healthcare and your defense. Especially if you're a country that's not threatened. If your country's well-being. If your sovereignty is not threatened, I don't see a reason to put that much money into your defense budget. If you're a smaller country, for example, if you're like Estonia, bro, like, I don't see why you should be putting money into your defense budget. If you're gonna get invaded by Russia, you're gonna get invaded by Russia. So, I think you should just focus on being diplomatic and having alliances and basically just focus on keeping your people happy.
To add on to what you said, I think, keeping people happy is different than keeping people safe, giving what they need instead of what they want. We all know, like, you guys have heard of the bread and circuses that Rome gave their people, even though they were living in absolute poverty, but to distract them, they'd give them the Colosseum and bread and food and stuff to distract them. currently, I think that's what's happening in the US when it comes to things like the World Cup, the Super Bowl, the sports, the food, the pop culture, the music. It's distracting people from the fact that they're living in relatively bad conditions to how their parents were living. They can't buy the same properties they used to be able to, the same amenities, everything. And they're being distracted by very, things that really don't matter. In the تخيلوا how China, do you think China is debating abortion? Do you think China's debating currently immigration laws? They're debating religion.
No, I agree. I mean, the US is in its own planet in the end, and to be honest, يعني هم بعالم والعالم بعالم زي ما بيحكوا.
So like the problem I have with China specifically, and we'll close on this, is when you compare China and the USA just invested $59 billion in B-2 jets, sure, but their national stability is much lower than that of China's. That's not the belief, that's a fact. They're debating stuff that shouldn't be debated. They're debating, I'd say, the bases of society. Whereas China doesn't care about debate. China's working on their technology, they're working on the military, and they're advancing in unparalleled speeds because the US is primarily a democracy.
Yeah.
And they have to debate every single topic. They have to debate every single thing. You have to go around every campus and getting as many votes as you can to be able to run a country successfully.
China isn't doing that.
China's just working.
They take pathetic situations more literally. In a way.
يعني very stupid stuff. And why they have so many first world problems when in reality خلاص إنه suck it up, work, so you can stay at the top يعني. I don't want them to, honestly, I don't care if they stay at the top. I don't, but when it comes to national stability, especially for Jordan, it's much better if the US stays on top than if China stays on top.
You're right.
It's, minus the Israel stuff. So to close off, $59 billion in the air, 0 on the ground.
Yeah.
It's been a great episode for us, and I hope it is to you guys.
Yeah.
This is the AMT podcast out.